Okay, young women, today's the day that we dive deeper into you and what's going on. We're going to talk about judgment and shame, two of the things that I don't like, but I love to talk about because the more that you understand about them, the more that you're able to work with them. So, what about judgment and shame? Why would that keep me from hearing him? I started teaching about shame years ago, and I thought, I wonder what shame really means. So I went on to Wikipedia, and it was a really interesting picture that they had underneath the definition. It was a picture of Eve whenever the Lord was coming to her, and she's hiding from the Lord. And the definition of shame is to hide oneself. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. That means that if I have shame, that I'm hiding from the Lord. And if I'm hiding from the Lord, I can't hear him and I can't allow his love to come into me if I'm blocking him out. And I realized that the shame that I had created in myself is what blocked me from being able to hear the Lord. I definitely needed to work on letting go of that shame, and that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so how do we do that? First of all, let's look at the scripture for the day. The Lord seeth not as the man seeth, for the man looketh upon the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh upon the heart. Shame is not something that looketh upon the heart. Shame is something that we create in our thoughts. So in the first week, we've talked about noticing our thoughts, our feelings, and what's going on inside of our body, like body sensations. We became the watcher to our thoughts, to be able to separate ourselves from our thoughts. All of these are in preparation for today, which is when I want you to recognize what your thoughts are, because we're going to work on how to bring your thoughts into wise mind. So let's talk first about shame. Shame is the belief system that there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough, that I don't measure up to someone else. Brene Brown has some great books about shame. I'm just going to read you a quote that she talks about her definition of shame. As we work to understand shame, one of the simpler reasons that shame is so difficult to talk about is vocabulary. We often use the terms embarrassment, guilt, humiliation, and shame interchangeably. It might seem overly picky to stress the importance of using the appropriate terms to describe an experience or emotion. However, it's much more than semantics. How we experience these different emotions comes down to self-talk. And that's where you become aware of your thoughts and the messages that you say to yourself over and over. There's something in your head that I call the ongoing track that just repeats over and over and over. Remember, we talked about that when becoming the watcher, taking ourselves out of that and noticing what that is. That's our belief system. The best place to start examining self-talk and untangling these four distinct emotions is with shame and guilt. The majority of shame researchers and clinicians agree the difference between shame and guilt is best understood as the difference between I am bad and I did something bad. Guilt would say, I did something bad. Shame would say, I'm bad. Shame is believing that I'm a mistake, not I made a mistake. Often it comes from ourselves, and we wonder, well, where did we learn shame from? Probably someone in our life shamed us at one point in time. My mother said this, a teacher said this, a friend said this, and I latched onto it and I believed it. And then I started to shame myself, telling myself, there's got to be something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. And that's where we don't hear the Lord. There's got to be something wrong with me. I don't hear the voice of the Lord. I don't measure up to others. Why would he want to talk to me instead of someone else? There's a really interesting experiment called the Dove experiment that's on YouTube. And I want you to go to it and watch. It shows an example of how people describe themselves and how other people describe them. And it's only their outward appearance, but it's very interesting the difference between the two. So I want you to go to Dove Real Beauty Sketches. You are more beautiful than you think on YouTube. It's 3 minutes. Watch the segment and then come back to the video. Okay, welcome back. Interesting, isn't it? That people described themselves in a completely different way than a person that just met them described them. The people that just met them were much kinder and gentler and loving to them than they were to themselves. Why? Because we know everything about ourselves. We know the good, the bad, the ugly. These people have just met me and they've only seen just a small glimpse of me, and they really judge me as being good. If we can look upon ourselves in that way, that would be the way that we could learn to love ourselves. So in your journal, it asks, how do you see yourself? I want you to pause it again, write that down, and then I want you to ask someone else how they see you. Your mom, your dad, your sister, probably not your 12-year-old brother. They're kind of clueless about that stuff. One of your friends, and notice the difference between how you describe yourself and how they describe you. And then come back and we're going to finish up the second half. Okay, so now we're going to learn a little bit about our thinking. There's some different types of mind, and we're going to teach you how these work. The first one is called emotion mind. Emotion mind is made up of pure emotion. There's no logic at all in it. So emotion mind would think something like, I go to school and I get my test back and I look at it and I got a D on it. I studied for this test. And in emotion mind, which is pure emotion, it would be, oh my God, what did I do? Goodness, I know I studied hard. How did I must have the wrong test. Like, did someone switch my paper? Maybe this means I'm really not that smart. I really thought that I was smart. Maybe it means that I'm not very good in math. Maybe it means that I really don't know what I'm talking about in math and in English and in science or even in life. And I got a D. What does this mean? I'm going to like fail the class and then I'll have to take summer school. And then what if I don't do well in summer school? What if I don't ever make it out of high school? What if I don't go to college and I have to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life? Just because I got a D means that my whole life is going downhill fast. That's emotion mind. But how many of us get sucked into our stories about emotion mind? That where, again, it's just pure emotion of shaming myself. There's something wrong with me. I'm judging myself. I'm judging that because I got a D, there's something wrong or bad with me, as opposed to the other mind, which is logic mind. Logic mind is just the facts. The fact is, I got a D. That's it. Nothing else. Logic mind's really easy. It takes a whole lot less time to do logic mind than it does to do emotion mind. In logic mind, I just look at the fact I got a D. Okay, so where does that bring me? In the two, it brings me into the middle, which is wise mind. Wise mind is bringing the logic into emotion mind, where I bring the fact in that says, I got a D. Okay, not even I got a D. My score was a D, reflecting the questions that I answered correctly and incorrectly. And in wise mind, it tells me, maybe I need to study harder for the next test, or, maybe I really don't understand this concept. I might want to go to tutoring. So whenever this comes up again, I'll be better prepared the next time. For me, it was statistics every time in math. All right, so let's look at this again. In emotion mind, it's a story. Stories are what our perception is of the moment that just happened. So truth is only in the moment. Truth is here for you and me because we're living it, we're in it. After that, it becomes our story because it's going to be my perception and your perception of the same moment, and you're going to say something completely different than I would because we have a different perception. Logic is just facts. The fact is the score I got on the test, and that they were the number of questions right and the number of questions wrong. And wise mind is my knowingness, and in my knowingness is where I go inside and find the truth. And again, the truth would simply be, I probably need to study harder. Now I want you to think about, how do I find the truth out about myself? That's kind of an interesting one because we are really hard on ourselves. We look at ourselves and we pick ourselves apart and we judge ourselves and we think, there's so much wrong with me. How could anyone love me just for who I am? How could anyone accept me just for who I am? That's not the truth. That's my story because I'm so afraid that people will not like me and reject me. The truth is, and the logic and the fact is, that I am an eternal being, a daughter of God that has infinite worth. And in wise mind, I go, wow, I'm really an amazing person. That's what the Lord sees. So I want you to write down how you see yourself, and then how you know that the Lord sees you.